インターネット上で合気道の人口を調べると正確な数字が出てこないんです。現在の合気道人口でどれくらい実際計算されてるのかお聞きしたいんですけど、合気道のことをちょっと悲しいんですけど、ブルシ道っていう名前で良くない言葉で言われているので、
And it's obvious that it's not to anybody who has martial arts experience.
日本の合気道で物理法則を超えた現象を信じている人たちが結構たくさんいると私は認識しているんですけども、
Some Daitoryu schools, the uke, they really like, I agree that Aikido it's at a crucial point right now.
はい、こんにちは、白川隆二です。今アメリカカリフォルニアでセミナーで来ております。そしてAiki Journal最高責任者の女子先生です。 Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Sensei.
Aiki Journal といえばAikiニュースといって合気道に関するさまざまな出版物、ビデオ、本、たくさんのいろんな情報を出版していました。でその中で私も若い頃よくAikiニュースを拝見して、大変いろんな先生のスタイルだったり、もう合気道の歴史を知ることができてとても勉強になりました。
Thank you. Well, I'm very honored to be able to carry on the tradition of Aikido Journal. Stanley Pranin was the founder, 1974, I think. And so I know that Aiki News, Aiki Journal had a profound impact on many Aikido practitioners over the years. So yeah, I'm very honored to be able to help carry forward the tradition.
はい。で女子先生といえばもうAiki Journalの最高責任者ということで、Aiki Journalにはたくさんの合気道のデータベース、信頼できるデータベースがあると思うんですけど、1980年代から2000年初頭にかけて合気道が未知なる武道として世界に大きく広がったと思うんです。その中でアメリカもたくさんの合気道家が稽古されて、合気道のアメリカの隆盛から現在に至る状況までをちょっと簡単に教えていただけますか？
Sure. So I think of the evolution of Aikido in the United States as there were four major milestones. The first milestone is the original teachers coming to America to kind of seed Aikido in the United States. And those teachers worked very, very hard to build a foundation for Aikido. Yamada Sensei, when he came out, he would ride on a bus to go places. He would do Aikido demonstrations during intermissions at karate tournaments to try to raise awareness, to try to start to build students, build dojos. So that was, of course, the foundation. So I think that's the first big milestone. Second is in the 1960s and the 1970s in the United States, there was what was called the human potential movement. And this was kind of a movement around trying to find higher consciousness. People would look to find ways to improve themselves, kind of related to hippie culture and all these different things. And so this movement got very popular in the United States, and the people in that movement discovered Aikido. And they found Aikido to be a martial art that they believed fit well with that belief system, that way of viewing the world. So they embraced Aikido, all those people, or many of those people, and then that allowed it to grow bigger, grew bigger, grew bigger. Then in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the first Steven Seagal movies came out. And of course, there were over 100 million people who saw those movies, even early on. And then Aikido skyrocketed in popularity even more. Dojo started to get many, many more students. Many of the instructors today in the United States started because they were inspired by watching one of those original Steven Seagal films. So I think that was the third big milestone. So, first one, the teachers came over, lay the foundation. Then the human potential movement, those people started to get involved, right, grew. Then the Steven Seagal movies grew even bigger, right? Then late 1990s, early 2000s is when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came to America, and UFC won, where they had different martial arts that then they would compete, right? It was whatever, wrestling versus Jiu-Jitsu versus karate versus sumo. And then after that, I think things changed, and many people started to get interested in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? It was the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family that created the UFC to showcase their art form, right? But that changed the martial arts world a lot. And then after that, I think Aikido has kind of declined, right? In the United States, it's gone down, down, down. So now we're in 2025, and the Aikido practitioners in the United States has shrunk. And the practitioners are just getting older and older, right? The people who started Aikido when they were young, they love it. They still practice it. But there aren't new people coming in, or not too many. Yeah.
やっぱり山田先生が合気道をアメリカに持ってきてで知っていただいて、それからヒューマンポテンシャル、人間の可能性っていうそういう文化の中で、さらにこう映画でスティーブン・セガール先生がこうバッとかっこいい合気道をして広まる、本当にいいタイミングでやって、それからUFC ですよね。 UFC ファイティングっていう新しい形で総合格闘技という、ね、ミックスドマーシャルアーツが出てきて、いろんな武道の武術の見方がで、いろんな選択肢がある中で、ちょっとまた合気道の見方も変わってきたということですね。分かりやすく説明いただきありがとうございます。で、次にお聞きしたいんですけども、合気道人口についてお聞きしたいんです。というのはインターネット上で合気道の人口を調べると正確な数字が出てこないんです。例えば柔道とか空手とかはある程度正確な数字を見ることができるんですが、合気道についてはやっぱ競技化されてないっていう点もありますし、やっぱりそこだけ成熟してない部分があるので、実際の合気道人口っていうのが正確に私自身も合気道やっててもわからないので、大体合気ジャーナルとして合気道人口、現在の合気道人口でどれくらい実際稽古されているのかお聞きしたいんですけど。
So these are just estimates based on kind of the data that we have. But in the United States right now, I would estimate between 10 and 15,000 practitioners, around that many. France, for example, last time, France has, I believe, 2 national organizations where people have to register as practitioners. So I think as of a few years ago, it was maybe 35,000, something like that, while the US is probably closer to 10 to 15,000. Worldwide, it's difficult to say, but our best estimates are maybe between 250 and 400,000 people.
日本の合気道人口ってどれくらいなんでしょう？
Yeah, it's difficult to say exactly, but we estimate between 40 and 60,000. And just by way of example, I would estimate that there's probably 500,000 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners just in the United States, which is more than all of the Aikido practitioners worldwide.
フランスでは柔道人口50万人で、日本の柔道人口が約16万人っていうふうに言われていたんですね。で、今女子先生から合気道人口実際の数字を聞いてちょっとびっくりしました。結構やっぱり思ってたより減っているんだなっていう感じが。
Yes. Martial arts throughout history, they go through phases of expansion and contraction. But right now, Aikido is in a contraction phase, for sure.
でもやっぱり正確な数字を知ることで、やっぱりどれだけ減ってるのか、どれだけ増やさなきゃいけないかっていう具体的な数字が目標として持てるので、すごく競技人口を知ることは大事なことだと思います。
Me too. if you can't measure, then it's very difficult to tell what's happening.
It is, yes. ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. で、次の質問なんですけども、アメリカや海外では合気道のことをちょっと悲しいんですけど、ブルシドっていう名前で良くない言葉で言われているので、合気道家としてはとても悲しい思いをしているんですね。その合気道がブルシットの合気道、ブルシット武道ということでブルシドっていう造語なんですけども、呼ばれていることについてどのようにお考えでしょうか？
I think it's sad too, and I think it's mostly the blame of Aikido practitioners, because we either explicitly or implicitly misrepresent what Aikido is, and people will see people doing, maybe they're practicing a connection exercise, not like a martial technique, but they'll watch that and then maybe some Aikido teachers will claim that that's a effective technique in a fight, right? And it's obvious that it's not to anybody who has martial arts experience. And so I don't think it's a problem with the martial art of Aikido. It's a problem of Aikido practitioners and teachers misrepresenting what Aikido is. And that's where the problem is. And I think that this is why it's called Bullshido. Because other people who have martial arts background, could be karate, could be judo, wrestling, they'll see an Aikido movement or an exercise and they'll say, well, that won't work in a real fight. And then the Aikido practitioners often will say, oh, yes, it will, right? And I think a better response is, no, it probably wouldn't work that way in a real fight, but here's why we do this, or here's an interesting kind of like a background on why we practice this way. And then they'll say, oh, okay, that's fine. But if we misrepresent what we're doing, or maybe some of us don't understand exactly what we're doing, then outside people are going to say, yeah, that's bullshit. That's bullshido. And I think that's what's happening.
回答ありがとうございます。やっぱ鋭い指摘で、やっぱり合気道側からもやっぱ他のマーシャルアーツについて学ばなければいけないし、どういう時に対して、その技が合気道の技が有効なのかっていうのも合気道家自身が勉強して知らないと誤った発信、誤った認識になってしまうっていうのが分かりました。ありがとうございます。でもう一つ質問したいんですけれども、合気道、日本の合気道でこう不思議な現象、物理法則を超えた不思議な現象、例えば少し触れただけで吹っ飛んでしまう、あるいは掴んだ手が離れなくなってしまうっていう、あるいは物理法則を超えた現象を信じている人たちが結構たくさんいると私は認識しているんですけども、アメリカや私ヨーロッパとか海外で指導をしてるんですけど、そういう物理法則を超えた不思議な現象を信じている合気道家って本当に海外では少ないので、その日本と海外でなんでこのような認識の違いがあるのかなってちょっと疑問に思ったんですが、それについて女子先生はどのようにお考えになってますか？
I think the main difference is cultural, essentially. So, for example, a friend of mine, he's an American. He lived in Japan for 13 years, practiced Aikido a lot in the 1970s, and he really understands martial arts history. He told me a story. He was at a Daito-ryu dojo talking to a master. And some Daito-ryu schools, the uke, they really like, they bridge and like, right? And then the person will touch and then they let go. And the American asked the sensei, why does the uke respond like that? And the Daito-ryu master looked at him and said, I don't know. He didn't know, right? But yet all the students, they follow that. The teacher never corrects them or tells them to do anything different, so it keeps going and going and going, right? So I think this is a result of a culture. In America, most people are going to say, why are you doing that? What's happening? Can you please explain why this is happening? So it's a cultural difference. Now on the flip side, I run a nonprofit organization, and we teach young people like life and leadership skills through martial arts. So every school year, we have maybe 50 new students who come in, Americans. And for sure, at least one of them, usually more, they'll walk into the dojo, they'll walk right by the shoe rack with their shoes, right into the dojo, almost onto the tatami. We've had students come in and they'll sit with their back to the kamisa, right? And just hanging out, sitting like this. Terrible, right? They're not aware of their surroundings, and they don't understand how to exist harmoniously in a new environment, right? So, there's good and bad of each, right? Culture, I think. So in Japan, people, I think, are more likely to want to be harmonious, to fit into the group, right? They see people doing the thing, and then they'll just follow along. Americans much more value independence, right? And independent thinking. And so and being an individual as opposed to like respecting the group. So that creates a lot of bad too, right? But in a different way. But so I think it's the cultural difference that then that's what's happening, in my opinion.
文化の違いということで非常にちょっと面白い新しい視点での考えでありがとうございます。勉強になります。私は今さまざまな YouTube コラボとしてさまざまな武術の先生たちと空手だったり柔道の人、あとキックボクシングの人、 MMA の人とかコラボレーションをしております。でその中で合気道に例えばジャブが来たらどうするのとか、カーフキックが来たらどうするの、ハイキックが来たらどうするの、フックが来たらどうするのっていうことをいろいろ言われるんですね。で今までの合気道の人たちっていうのはなかなか格闘技っていうものがここまで発展していなかったので、そういう質問をなかなか受けてこなかったと思うんですよ。もし現在、合気道マスター、レジェンドの合気道マスターたちが生きていて、このような私に来るような現代の格闘技者がジャブが来たらどうですか、ローキックが来たらどうするんですか、カーフキックが来たらどうですかって現代格闘技の攻撃が来たらどのように今の昔の合気道マスターたちは答えたと思いますか？
Well, let me take this in two parts. So the first part, I think if you want to, these are all very reasonable questions. What do I do from jab? What do I do from kick? People who may be thinking about practicing Aikido, they may ask these questions, especially if all they see is katate dori, shomenuchi, right? So I think that these are good questions. And then as instructors, we need to be able to answer those questions. And maybe the answer is, we just don't deal with this. But I think a better answer is to find creative ways to collaborate with other martial artists to find ways that you can use Aikido techniques or principles to respond to those kinds of situations. And the only way to do that is to train and collaborate with people who are experts in those types of attacks, in those other types of martial arts. There was a British philosopher, his name was John Stuart Mill, and he had a saying that he who only knows his own side of the case knows little of that. And I think what he means is that if you only understand your own side, but not the other side, you really don't understand even your own side, because you can't defend against like an argument or whatever from the other side. Same thing with martial arts. If you only do Aikido and you never look at or interact with martial artists from other martial arts, you really don't know the strengths and limitations of the Aikido system, because you can't appreciate and understand what other martial arts have to offer, how they attack, what their tactics are, all that stuff. So I think for the people who ask these questions about what do you deal with a low kick, what about maybe a guillotine choke or jab, the way that you create good answers to that is you collaborate with the people who know how to do those types of attacks, and then you find Aikido-based solutions. And at least in my experience, martial artists from all other martial arts, they're very friendly and they're very happy to collaborate. And this is a good opportunity for us as Aikido practitioners to strengthen our art and to better understand our own art, the strengths and the limitations, and to find ways maybe to make it more relevant to more people, I think. And for the second part of your question, how would the old masters respond to these questions? I don't know inside their heads how they would respond. I mean, I think if you would ask them back then, so if you were to ask a master back in the 1970s, they would probably say, well, if they try to attack me that way, once they break the harmony, then they will immediately be defeated by my Aikido techniques. They would just say that. If they're alive today, I don't think they would say that, because it's very easy to disprove that. with today, everybody has cameras. It's very easy. You have training equipment where you can actually test stuff out. And so you can easily disprove claims like that. So I'm not exactly sure how they would respond. I think back then would be a different answer than maybe how they would respond today.
ありがとうございます。今こう合気道が1980年代ぐらいからずっと盛り上がってきたんですけど、実際に全世界で若者が合気道の減少、そして、全体の合気道人口自体が減少しているし、そういう MMA だったり空手だったり競技者からの厳しい視点で合気道が初めてこう見られていくっていう点で、大変今合気道がこう衰退するのか、またはこう盛り返して反映していくかっていう分岐点だと私は考えてて、すごくいろいろどうすれば合気道がこう世界に広まっていくのかな、日本で広まってくれるのかなって思って活動しているんですが、今後こう合気道がもっともっと多くの人に知っていただくためにどのようにすればいいか、女子先生のお考えを教えてください。
Yeah, so just my personal opinion, I agree that Aikido it's at a crucial point right now, and this is the time we need to change things somehow, because if you don't change, we'll have the same result, which is decline. So then the question becomes what to change, how to change it. I'm not sure exactly, but here are just some thoughts. One is you have to preserve the core system, the principles behind Aikido and the basic technical system. So I think all Aikido practitioners should learn that and embrace that. But then beyond that, I think you need to adapt. You need to innovate. And that can take different forms. And it's difficult to say what is the exact right form. Maybe it's a different answer for different places around the world or different generations of people. But for sure we have to change things. We have to be able to clearly explain the value of Aikido to people when they ask, or even if they're just thinking in their head, why do I want to choose Aikido instead of Judo, instead of BJJ, instead of Kendo, whatever? We have to have a good answer for that, right? So we have to really think about what that answer is. Why would they want to pick Aikido over other martial arts? So I think as teachers we have to have an answer for that. I think also we have to make sure we're very careful about what we claim Aikido is and what it can do. Because if we misrepresent our own art form, then people will criticize it and they will dismiss it, right? And I think we need to, in my opinion, do like you're doing. We need to collaborate with other martial artists. So as Aikido teachers, we learn more about other martial arts systems, how to engage and interact with those systems, and to be able to answer the types of questions you're talking about. What about a low kick? What about a jab? Things like this, right? And I think with this, we have to try it. We have to try it. And I think what you're doing is working, right? So every culture is different. In America, we really respect innovation and risk-taking. And it doesn't always produce great results, but if you get a good, if you have the right innovation, it has great results. And just look at your YouTube channel. Right? You have over 500,000 subscribers. That's not 500,000 people who just watch your video. That's 500,000 people who click to subscribe to get your content and get notified when you put out a new video. That's more people than there are Aikido practitioners in the entire world. And that's probably, your YouTube channel is probably bigger than every other Aikido teacher in the world combined. So clearly you're doing something right. You're onto something, right? So I think we need to, like you have done, you obviously, you've been innovating and you've been taking risks. Especially in Japanese culture, I think it's very difficult to break out and do something different, right? So I really I really respect what you're doing. It's very inspiring for me, and I think this is, this is the start of, maybe a new way forward for Aikido, and I love Aikido, and we have many young people that train at my dojo, right? And they love Aikido too, right? But many other dojos, it's very difficult to bring in new people. So I think we need to make sure, again, to not misrepresent what it is that we're doing. And not everybody, but some of us should try to innovate, right? Yeah, that's really, really important. And to collaborate. I think the more Aikido practitioners can practice other martial arts, I think it's better. We get better, more well-rounded martial artists, and I think it makes them better Aikido practitioners. Some Aikido teachers, maybe they feel either threatened if their students, I don't want them to learn Jiu-Jitsu because then they'll leave Aikido. Or some of them may think, if they start learning another martial art, it's going to slow down their progress in Aikido, for example. But those approaches haven't worked, right? It's clear that hasn't worked. So I think it's time to try something else. And as we innovate, I still think it's really important to respect and preserve the philosophy and the basic technical system. But beyond that, there's a lot of room for creative, expansion and innovation. So that's my thinking.
ありがとうございます。やっぱり合気道家自身がやっぱこれからの私とか女子先生とか若い先生たちがちょっとねいろんな角度で合気道をアピールしていかないとダメっていうことで、ちょっと一緒にこれからもぜひ合気道の未来のために頑張っていきましょう。はい。
Great. I'm very excited.
はい。
Look forward to it.
ということで今後もですね皆さん応援よろしくお願いします。ということでご視聴ありがとうございました。女子先生貴重な意見ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。